What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of a Thinking Man's podcast. If you're watching now on YouTube, please subscribe to the Muscle Media Network. Like the video, leave us a comment, share it with a friend, ring the bell so you're notified every time we drop a new video. As always, this episode is brought to you by Kodiak Bodybuilding Apparel. Train hard, die strong. Thanks to Chris for supporting the channel. My co-host Tommy Styles is here with me, and today we have OCB Natural Pro bodybuilder Jacob Delara. Jacob, thanks for joining the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. And first off, just want to say thank you guys for having me on. I have been watching this podcast religiously since you guys have started it about a year ago. So I really appreciate all the information you guys have given and the insight to your guys' bodybuilding careers and everything like that. So happy to be on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's really cool to hear. And so for full context, for the listeners, Jacob is Tommy's training partner right now. You guys are out there training in the Muscle Factory out there in Arizona. So yeah, that's really cool to hear, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like in terms of like your bodybuilding career. You're a young guy, right? How old?
23.
23. Okay, right on. So kind of give us, the origin story a little bit. Tell us how you got into training and competitive bodybuilding as you did, and we'll let it run from there.
Yeah. All right. So I basically started training at a really young age, about 13 years old. I started training for bodybuilding. Didn't really know what I was doing back then, but I had the mindset of, training for bodybuilding purposes. And I got really, really into it starting in college. And that's kind of when my interest in bodybuilding really took off. First competitive show was in 2021. That is when I turned pro in the OCB. I also compete in the NPC as well. But that's kind of how I got started. And now training with Tommy, things are getting more serious now and going to compete again next year. So exciting.
Cool. What's the plan moving forward? I was going to ask, like, what's the timeline? And then, anyone that's listening, I would say the majority of the people that listen are probably enhanced or follow pro bodybuilding. What's the plan show wise? And then are there any plans like to kind of flip the switch and come to the dark side?
Yeah. So I've talked about it with Tommy a little bit. And then my coach, who I'm going to get back with for when I start my prep, who is AJ Morris. He's out in the UK. And he was the one that did my prep for my first show back in 2021. But talked to him a few times the past couple months, and we're going to shoot for a show next year. I don't really have any like set specific date for when I want to compete. Talking to him, it's like whenever I'm ready, I'm ready. So we can pick a show based on when my body looks like it's ready to compete. And in terms of competing naturally or, with the NPC, I actually don't see myself maybe ever taking gear or any PEDs going forward. But I do actually have more of an interest in competing in the NPC anyways. There's just some things I don't really like about the different natural federations, but I actually still probably will do some more natural shows. But I'm more interested in the NPC. So whatever comes down the line is what we'll do. But that's kind of the time frame going forward. Sometime next year, we'll step on stage again.
I gotta ask why. Why do you? Because you are so committed, and I took a look at your photos. I follow you on Instagram too. You have a killer physique, man. Like there's a lot of people that don't look like you even after taking gear. So from my perspective, again, I'm biased. I'm enhanced. I have been for quite a while at this point. But when I see somebody, especially that has the goods naturally, I'm always like, man, why wouldn't this guy want to see what he's eventually capable of, like beyond what his natural capability is. So I'm just curious, what is it? Is it a morality thing? Is it a health thing? Like what goes into that decision? Because there should be a lot that goes into that decision.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, I talked about it on my story a little bit ago, and all my life with any type of like drugs, I've always been a little bit paranoid and skeptical of. I've never really been into it. And I know PEDs, like there's a safe way to do it. And I know you guys get your blood work done and you take the precautions that you need to. But I don't know. It's interesting because everyone always talks about how they feel the need to or like feel the interest to start taking gear, but I really never get like the
Mm.
I never have it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just be me, but I'm just not really drawn to it too much. And maybe it's just like putting a needle in me or something, but I don't know. I really don't know why.
I don't. I hear that. I don't blame you.
And I think
What
maybe also the more I follow natural bodybuilding and get into it, I think that there's so much potential, as a natural athlete, and I'm barely scraping the surface as a natural athlete. So I know
Yeah.
that I can keep growing for years and years and years. So, I'm happy with where I'm at and I'm making progress still. And if down the line I do want to play around with some of the stuff on the dark side, so be it. I'm not saying I'm ruling it out, but
Yeah.
and it's also not like a really a morality thing. Like I have nothing against anything or anyone that does use the PEDs. It's really just my personal thing.
what at 13 got you into bodybuilding? Because I started training when I was 12, but I didn't find bodybuilding until I was 17. So I'm curious if there's like a defining moment that how you found bodybuilding.
I think the movie Pumping Iron, I think that was the first time I was introduced to bodybuilding. I saw that at like about 12 or 13 years old. That's kind of when I got into it. Saw the Generation Iron movies. I think they came around that time period too. And then I started lifting mainly for football because I played football all my life, my childhood. But I was really actually just more interested in bodybuilding, and maybe it was just those being introduced to like the movie Pumping Iron and some of the big guys back then like Callum Von Moger, social media presence. I feel like that's kind of when Instagram and social media kind of took off, and that's kind of when I was introduced to it, and I just fell in love with it right from the beginning.
And so when you say like oh, go ahead, Tommy.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say when you say like you were training for bodybuilding, like were you eating like almost like a bodybuilder were you walking around with food at that point? Because that's wild early,
No, I definitely wasn't eating like a bodybuilder. No, not a chance. I was still, my parents were cooking and stuff.
Yeah.
It was more so I had weights in my garage, like a squat rack, a whole set of dumbbells, everything I really needed. So it was really just the training that I really got into
Yeah.
at the young of age. I probably would say around 18 is when I actually started eating like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I mean, you're a young guy, but you're 5 years into competitive bodybuilding. And you have a hell of a physique, man. Is there ever, I've seen like you have like some pretty widespread popularity across the different social media platforms. Is there ever doubts from people, or do you ever deal with negativity in terms of whether or not you are actually natural?
Oh yeah, all the time. But I've kind of just learned to I don't let it affect me. I get tons of comments about that type of stuff all the time, but it really doesn't bother me. I think that, but bodybuilding in and of itself is very niche, and most people just don't understand it and don't they don't really know what's possible naturally and stuff like that. But it doesn't really get to me at all. No.
If anything, I would say just take it as a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. Yeah.
It's only going to boost engagement online too, and people are going to argue about what if you're natural or not. Like you just sit and watch the fire.
Yeah, I talk about that too. Yeah, in the comment sections, it'll drive thousands of comments from just random people going back and forth. And hey, so be it.
So you made a comment to KJ, my videographer, one day while we were filming. I think it was the first day of the Size Up project. So for the listeners, you did get a college degree from Arizona State, right?
Yeah, I did. I graduated in 2022, got a degree in business supply chain management.
And you received a job offer in that field?
Yeah, I did. So I had an internship my senior year, and that company reached out and said they wanted to give me a job offer. Yeah.
did you take that job or did you not, and why?
Yeah, so this is kind of a cool story. So yeah, like I said, I had that internship my senior year, and then they offered me the job. And this was kind of, I competed for the first time in my senior year, right before I graduated. And this was kind of when I was growing a following. And I wasn't I didn't have too much interest in the job that I was offered. But as I grew the following, I knew I wanted to bodybuild and work out for a living. That's what the main goal. And about a month before I graduated, I actually got reached out by one of my biggest sponsors that I have now, Young LA, the clothing brand. And a month before I graduated, they offered me a sponsorship, and I basically gave myself 3 months because that's when I would have started my job for the company. And I said, if by 3 months I can make a decent living through this sponsorship, I'm going to go for it and decline the job and just go all in with the bodybuilding. And I was still working out quite a bit at the restaurant, you know, about the restaurant, Tommy, still serving on the side as well. But I was kind of dead set on, if I can make good enough money to bodybuild through social media and coaching and stuff, then I'm going to go for it and not take the job. So that's what I did. And a year and a half later, I'm very happy that I did so.
So that's a cool story, and that's why I brought it up, because I mean, our stories, Joe and I's, are very, you know, we went into different industries and then left that, taking a chance to try to make it all happen for bodybuilding and coaching and everything. You are like a step ahead of us. You got to like
10 steps,
that decision, and then chose the living. So I think, because a lot of our listeners have had that same, you know, do I go right or do I go left? Do I leave my career and pursue what I want to do? And you had that decision of like, it's almost like that board game life where it's like, go this way or go that way when you're 18, but you had it right in front of you at 22. And I get chills thinking about that. For you were able to make that decision, because I know what it was like for me to make the decision, and I was years older than you and wiser. So if anything, I commend you for just, you know, betting it all on yourself and choosing your own path, because that's ultimately what life's about. I mean, I think there's a lot of pressure from parents and society, and, you know, work a job, have a 401k, retire when you're 50, all that shit. And it's like, man, you could create your own life and do 77 things by the time you're 50 if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. And likewise to you guys, I commend both of you guys for doing the same, hearing your guys' stories and how you guys have kind of transitioned into online coaching full time. I love it, and I love to hear the stories of it. And that honestly is a part of why I did what I did, because I was listening to your guys' podcast and I hear your stories, and gives me hope that I can, you know, do what you guys do too, you know?
Man, you are. I have to correct Tommy, because you're probably 10 steps ahead of us in terms of what you're going to be capable of and the opportunities that you're going to have at your disposal, because you made that leap of faith on yourself as young as you did. You know, Tommy and I, it didn't happen until we were in our late 20s and had kind of put our nose to the grindstone in other stuff that wasn't what we were passionate about. So you being all in on what you love to do every day so early in life, it makes what you can do completely limitless. And that only comes from a place of a lot of self-belief. So I kind of want to ask you about that. Like, where does that come from? Does it come just from action, like you competing, growing the following, so those actions give you that self-belief, or was that something that you've always had? And part of that too is, does that come from a support system? Like, do you have good family or friends or you know, training partners like Tommy? Like, do you have good people behind you that support the decisions that you make?
Yeah. So I appreciate it again. And I will say, I don't know if I've always really had the self-belief. I will say that I'm very, very fortunate to have the upbringing I did. I have a great family, great parents, great brothers and extended family, friends, training partner, and Tommy. I have a great support system. So and even also my following, the following that I have that supports me with my sponsors and everything. So I don't think I would be here today without all of that help. I wouldn't be here for sure. So I have to give it to everyone that's helped me to this point. I haven't believed in myself, but with everyone around me, that is the reason I'm here today. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding, I guess. So like, like I was getting at, like when the action and then that confirmation of what you're doing is working so well, you kind of have no choice but to believe everybody else at that point, even if you don't have it inherently in yourself. It's like, man, all these other people have really responded to what I'm doing. So now that's kind of the backstory. All very cool to hear that the show has been part of it in some small way. That's awesome to hear. That's literally exactly why Tommy and I started this to begin with. So that's kind of a cool moment for Tommy and I listening to that. But I want to ask you about training, because you're training with my buddy Tommy here, and I know what he's about and who he's learned under, and he tells me you're a machine. So I want to hear kind of what your training philosophy has evolved into, even like before your time with training with Tommy, because having a mentor like that will kind of shape how you train. But I'd like to hear kind of the evolution of your training, and then anything that you've observed or learned or changed training with Tommy.
Yeah. So like I said, when I started at 13, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I think that my progression in bodybuilding training has just been just a slow progression over time. And I think the first big influence that anyone had on me was probably John Meadows. He was the first guy I kind of watched, his YouTube channel and everything, and his style of training. That's kind of how I modeled my training around. And then I think the biggest jump I made in my training was when I hired my coach, AJ Morris. And he, like I said, based out of the UK, he has more of like a Dorian Menser kind of low volume approach. So that's kind of what I grasped onto as well. But the thing with training for me is, I love training. No matter what I'm doing, I just love lifting, and I'm open to trying new ways of lifting as well. I'm trying not to be one of those guys that's just kind of stuck in a specific type of style and preaches that type of style, even though that's what a lot of people do nowadays. I think that there's just beauty in all different types of training, and I love trying new things. I think the low volume type of approach has worked for me best, but training with Tommy now, mixing it up, and we do some different things that I've never done before. But overall, I mean, I love to train heavy. I love to sweat, and just I love to feel worn out. I love to feel just absolutely shot. So that's how I like to train, just hard and heavy. And Tommy's helped me a lot. I really appreciate Tommy's help. We've only been training together for a month or 2 months now, maybe, Tommy. But
yeah, a couple months.
I think the biggest help Tommy's been for me is, I have a good understanding of training approach and how to train properly. But Tommy I think you have a much better grasp on like biomechanics and just how the body moves, and just different, like helping me with different positioning, and putting me in different spots with every exercise has helped me a ton. So that's helped a lot with Tommy. But yeah, it's basically my training is, I just like to train hard and train heavy and progressive overload. So pretty simple.
It looks like it. It's a process that can't be cheated or faked. And Tommy and I'm sure you've heard us talk about it ad nauseum on the show, where at your age, especially, like, you should be training all out, like heavy progressive overload, kind of like that Dorian style training. I mean, that's how you're going to build the density and the maturity in your muscle early on. And then when you turn into kind of the older head, like where Tommy and I are at, and then you may find that you need to move to a higher volume approach or whatever. I'm going to reference our buddy of the show, Joey Cavalier. We have Joey on Joey Quads on Instagram, and he gave me this phrase where he said that everything works, but nothing works forever, which I thought was interesting because we've kind of all gone through a similar progression where we train like that early on, and then you have to kind of find new ways as maybe you deal with injuries or whatever. But yeah, that's great to hear, man. And like I said, that physique, you can't fake that. It looks like a physique that moves heavyweight. So I would actually like to pose this now to Tommy, and I'd like to hear from you, Tommy, what you've seen from Jacob in terms of being a training partner and seeing him in the gym every day, because then you have kind of an experience or exposure to him that not many other people are going to have.
Yeah, so I actually met Jake in 2021 at Muscle Factory. But I think my first introduction to him was he was training in a hoodie and sweats, and he bottomed out the hack squat. And whenever someone trains hard in the gym, I take a second to stop and like make a facial recognition and then just take note of that person. Because in our gym, it's a lot of kids his age, but he's an anomaly that actually trains super fucking hard. And it's funny you've built the followings you have, because you actually don't like cameras. You don't really like doing any of that goes into like being a full-time bodybuilder as far as like a job thing, which is the same as me. I just, Dusty kind of taught me the way to be a businessman. And that's kind of just what I try to pass along to him if it fits. But that was 2 years ago. And then I've just always had eyes on it. And then earlier in my prep, I was actually thinking ahead to what my off season would look like. And I hadn't had a training partner in a long time. I was doing my own thing, training at 2 different gyms, just kind of training at different times. And I knew I wanted to have someone for the off season that can help me, because I think, and we've talked about it, when you have a training partner that like you can get in as many sessions as possible with, that can be like, it can be like a PED. It can be like a game changer, because it just creates a level of standard that you're not going to have on your own every time. So, back to your question, like Jake just trains hard. I mean, we show up, we don't talk a ton, ask each other how, like, it's like, what's up? And like, we just go to the first exercise. And there's not a ton of talking while we train. Maybe if I'm like showing him something like that I see in his training that I might be able to help with, but that's a thing too about like, I'm not there to coach him. He has a coach, which he's now put out there. I'm there to help him if I can as a training partner, but like I'm a part of his set. He's a part of my set. There's 4 steps where we both come into play, but at the end of the day, I wanted him as a training partner to make me better. And then I know I can make anyone better that I train with. But at any given time at Muscle Factory, I'm confident in saying that there's no one training at harder than us. Maybe there's some people that can train as hard, but every time we train, there's that we're the top level that everyone else is going for. And that's what we've preached on the show since we started. And, Turner's talked about it, like being the guy or being the standard in your gym as far as training intensity. He's never once made a reference that he could do more if he was on gear. Like, I don't even think of him as a natural. I don't give a shit. He just trains really hard on the days that we're there together. And that's all it is intensity. And then, like I told you in private, he is a machine. Like I'm enhanced, and I'm the one trying to keep up a lot when it comes to volume, because he'll come in on our off days and do extra shit. He'll do extra shit after the session finishes. So it's actually leveled me up as far as like, all right, if this kid can give this much, I know what my goals are, so I'm going to give that much more too. So it's just a synergistic dynamic of, I want to make him better. He wants to make me better. And that's what a training partnership should be when you have big goals. And I know, he's going to get on stage in 2024. And the MPC, I know the MPC, like, that physique, natural or not, can be competitive in any lineup in America. That's just, it just comes down to how bad do you want it and who wants it more and who's willing to show up. And, we both, since we're both doing it as a career now, and that's why I brought that up about him choosing, whatever you want to label your title. You're not an influencer, but you kind of are, because you can influence the way people go about their approach to bodybuilding. you're just a full-time bodybuilder. That's how I look at myself, is like, I do lift weights for a living in a way. I mean, I coach, and that's how I make actual money. But I became a coach because I loved lifting weights. And then that got me into competing. And then competing got me into wanting to coach. And then that got me into quitting my job because my job got in the way of all of that. So, long story long, it's just a matter, it's all about intensity for me. And like he said, I don't have to like hold his hand and tell him to go harder. It's, I can help with positioning and structure just because I have an eye on him that he doesn't have on himself if there's no video. But outside of that, it's very much like, it's intense. I mean, our leg days, some of them have went over 3 hours, and it's just like when you finish, you just like, you feel good for a minute, like, damn, I'm going to feel this for 5 days. But that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think you'll probably find too, like you were getting at, like, yes, having a real deal training partner, it elevates what your daily standard is. And when you have a good training partner and they're in your set with you, it can elevate like that individual set's intensity. But I think in your shoes, this is something that I've found in the past couple of years, like being in the position that you and I are in at this point, Tommy. If I have somebody younger than me come in and I can't help myself, I wind up giving them, whether it's biomechanics or setup or some type of little cue or something, because we've lived through it and failed through it a million times to know, like, hey, you're going to want to think about it like this and set yourself up like this. I can't help myself. I wind up doing that when I train with somebody. And every time without fail, yes, I'm making that other person better because I'm helping them set up or execute in a way that they haven't before. But it's a reinforcement. I'm almost reteaching myself that, hey, this is what I need to be doing and thinking about every single time. Like it's a reminder to myself, because I'm showing this young kid this technique or how this should be. Well, then I better step up and do this exactly like I just explained to him, because who am I then if I'm preaching something that I don't practice? So it's cool. It's cool to hear about the synergy between the two of you guys. And it's always, like you said, it can bring out a better version of the two of you that maybe wasn't even there before, from you two linking up. So that's training. And then one of the other things that caught my eye too, so you are coaching now. So I want to hear what your experience has been like coaching, because obviously that's the main driver for Tommy and I in terms of business. So I'd like to hear what your experience has been, because I'd assume, I don't want to assume, but I would assume that you're probably helping a lot of guys your age or even younger. So I'd like to hear maybe any observations or what your experience has been like coaching.
Yeah. So I only started taking on clients maybe less than a year ago, really. So I haven't been in it too long. At first, I really didn't like it too much. I took a lot of people on, just to be honest, I took a lot of people on for free at first. I was training a lot of people for free. And the biggest thing I found, even though I think training people for free is cool and all, to get experience, I think that it just, there has to be some transaction of like, so there has to be a transaction of something for them to put in more, put in the time, and make it serious, and then also for me as well. So I think I started to enjoy it more when I started charging people, and so like I said, I've been doing it for about a year or so, but I actually have found to really enjoy it now, and I have a couple kids that I help out, and they are monsters, and they just get their stuff done, and every single week they are doing everything right, and I love it, and it's been super fun, and I think I've found the joy in coaching, and I'm ready now to do it for a career for sure.
I don't want to make it negative, but what type of observations have you seen in terms of maybe things that you don't love about coaching?
I mean,
because I think it's good for people to hear. There are people that ask us all the time, like that do listen, that, like Tommy said, there are people that maybe are in a different career and they want to make the transition to coaching. And I think it seems to people on the outside, it seems maybe more glamorous, or easy than it is. Like, it's just like, oh, you just make your own schedule and you just go lift weights and then answer a couple emails. And, you know, if you've done this, like you even doing this for a year, you know that that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I would be curious, not to make it negative, but I would be curious to hear maybe the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be frustrating at times just because, I mean, for all three of us, you know, we live and breathe bodybuilding, so we're going to do everything right, you know, we'll do everything that our coach says, but it's hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes that bodybuilding really isn't the biggest priority, or even like fitness or getting healthy or losing weight or gaining weight isn't the biggest priority for them necessarily. So it's tough to, you know, try and get them over that hump. I've told Tommy about this, that I think coaching has almost been more of like I'm coaching people for more of like a mindset thing, and like giving them help mentally more so. Like, because at the end of the day, you know, I think that especially for a lifestyle, like coaching lifestyle people, I think that it's fairly simple, you know, but it's just getting people to do what you tell them to do. And that's always been the trickiest part for me. So I found that it's more just trying to help people and talk to them and be communicative with them and listen to their stories and help them out and hear them out, more so than actually like the nitty picky stuff. But yeah, I still do like it though.
That was a very diplomatic answer. I appreciate it. I respect it.
Give him time. So on the topic of coaching, and this is something that catches my eye about you, is that what I've noticed with a lot of kids your age, even a little bit older than you, is that no one wants to get big. As far as like they can't get soft, they can't get fluffy. If they've been lean, they can't let go of that. Everyone has to have, you know, sharp abs and obliques and quad lines, and which is great. You know, I love that aspect of it too. But how did you kind of separate yourself from the pack? Because I mean, you post pictures of yourself, I see you, like you've had no problem like getting softer and just being bigger, and like you can tell people your height and weight so people can put it like you're a bigger dude. Like you're not some little guy walking around next to me in the gym. Like for your height, you're a big person.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously the reason that I'm, you know, at the weight I am now and I'm okay to be soft is, or my physique is a little bit softer now, is just because, like we've gone over, I love bodybuilding. And I know that this is what it entails, is you have to get a little bit soft. So I'm going to do it regardless. And in terms of like the whole social media thing, I think that, you know, you're right with, you know, everyone, you know, kind of my age wants to be lean year round, and everyone always wants to have abs, but you got to understand, I mean, the thing is you have to separate yourself, like you said. And how can you separate yourself? You have to go all in. And now people look at me like nobody really sees someone necessarily that looks like me, because everyone's shredded with abs. So it's kind of cool to see that. And another thing is that, you know, I think people are drawn to those that really enjoy their process and actually have a deep love for what they do. And I think that, you know, because I'm able to get a little bit softer and lose my abs because I know it's better for competitive bodybuilding, I think people like that, enjoy that. And same thing with kind of like you, Tommy, like you said, that, you know, you have lifestyle people that just enjoy to see how much you love bodybuilding, and they just follow you, even though they're not necessarily bodybuilders. They just love to see that you love it so much. So, you know, I think that people enjoy it, and I've never really had a problem. Or actually have had a problem in the past. I never would want to lose my abs, but now that I'm so deep into it, I just love it. So, yeah.
I would say the takeaway from that, and just as a general theme, the thing that I have always found, and the more I put out there, the more I share in the off season, the more I'm willing to talk about, you know, losing your abs and all these different things, or long stretches of time away from the stage, where, you know, the stage and the prep is where all the attention is and where the likes and the comments really come in, you know, at least from outsiders. But if there's anything that I can maybe share with you or anybody listening, and you've already found this for yourself, it's that people gravitate to authentic, and being authentic hits home with the right people. So it may not bring the same numbers, but it's going to bring a loyal audience to where they are really bought into what you're doing. So that's nothing that you didn't already know and find out for yourself, but just to reiterate it and put some words to it, because you're on such a great path and you have such a great mindset for somebody that is your age, because like you said, this is your chance to separate yourself. Like, it's almost like you saw that everyone is going down this path, and so, you know what, I'm going to take the path of most resistance and I'm going to go the other way, and look at what it's yielded for you. I mean, the I think I said this earlier, but the proof is in the pudding, man. Like, what you're doing is working.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then I think as a, you know, people always want to compare natural versus enhanced as being like, it is slower. I mean, the word enhanced, if you look up what it means in the dictionary, no shit, it's faster. If you like, if you enhance yourself, it will be faster, but you still have to.
We're supercharged, baby.
And you know, all the work Jake has done since 2021 when he competed, it's hard to see that week to week to month when you're just in a caloric surplus. That's life. Like, and I remember making posts that I've seen on Facebook Time Hop recently, because I didn't compete from 2017 to 2021, and there was, you know, the question you get once you've done a show or you get a little bit of notoriety in your area is, when are you competing again? And at a certain point, that question gets old, because if you're in an extended time away from the stage, you're like, I don't even know. I'm just bodybuilding at this point. Like, I'm just building my body, and maybe there's life shit I'm trying to get together. So when I do compete, I don't have all that outside stress and I could just focus on competing. But you really start to see like the drastic changes in muscularity you make when you do take that time away from the stage, but also just get big and fluffy. And I mean, how tall are you?
5'7".
So 5'7", and I think you're 204.
Yep.
Right. So you're not a little human. You know, more people gravitate to Jake in Muscle Factory, probably because he's got the beautiful head of hair and more personable than me. But
definitely helps.
What I mean is, like, he just, you know, you have a physique that especially kids your age and younger are going to aspire to achieve. And like, you have all that feedback from your own journey of like, this is what it takes. So I think that's going to help you in coaching, because you know what the mental was like to be in this body right now. And, you know, outside of having awesome training and awesome pumps, like, there's not, I mean, I kind of want to hear your experience about it. What's it like carrying all the extra weight outside of the gym? Like, what are some hard struggles you've noticed?
Yeah, it took a little bit to get used to, I think, especially now that I'm so deep into my off season. My cardio definitely isn't the best, and I'll get out of breath from doing certain things for sure, or even just bending down. But you know, I try not to let it get to my head. I know that I'm not like at a super unhealthy level, so I know I'm okay, and I get my blood work done, so I'm fine. But you know, just walking around feeling heavy all the time is definitely not the best feeling in the world for sure. And force feeding yourself like you guys do as well, you know, it sucks, but it's just got to be done, you know, to get to your goals. But nothing great is going to be easy. So you just got to love the process. And
so what are you eating? Tell me about it.
So big thing.
What's the diet like? Are you? Does the diet look like Sam Sulek's or what?
Doesn't look like Sam Sulek's. No. I love that kid. I think he's great for the industry, but I don't agree with the whole diet thing. Something I found that works for me diet wise is I used to like do macro counting and stuff like that, but I'm on like basically a set meal plan now that I have for myself. But what I do is each meal is a different protein that I have every single day. So a different type of meat every meal. And then usually, you know, rice or pasta is mostly just rice is gonna be my carb. But meat and carbs for the most part is my diet, but a different protein source for each meal, just so my body isn't just disgusted with one source, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good for sustainability for sure. Even hearing that, it makes total sense. So what do you like? What makes up a day for you?
So breakfast is always salmon and rice.
Okay.
Post workout, it's always chicken and rice.
Yeah.
Another tilapia and rice. I like fish, so tilapia and rice. And
Okay,
then
tilapia. All right.
Shrimp. I like shrimp as well.
Yeah.
And then usually my last meal is some type of steak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
And steak and
Any
potatoes.
shakes? Any shakes? Any whey protein?
I don't do any shakes. I do like an intra type shake with EAAs and carbs, but
Sure.
no whey protein at all in my diet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good message, even for anybody listening too. It's something that we've harped on from our own experience. But again, like you lift heavy shit up off the floor and eat meat and rice over and over again, and you're gonna have an unmistaken look about your physique that just cannot be uh, cheated or faked by doing some of these other things. So yeah, I asked you because I figured that was the case. So I kind of wanted to drive that point home. That's interesting.
And to your point, like you said, this is stuff that a large portion of this stuff is stuff that I've learned from you guys' podcast. So appreciate it.
I saw a YouTube that because I do watch your YouTube sometimes. You said you were talking about vegetables and how your advice on vegetables was that you just need to find one or two that you don't gag on and just eat them. And I thought for someone your age to have that wherewithal, like, because I've talked about it. I mean, I didn't make that realization and acceptance until I was like 29. Like I was like, anything green, I was like,
Yeah,
get it off my plate.
yeah,
So,
that's what I tell a lot of the kids that I coach and stuff, or how I operate. I like green beans and I like carrots, so that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, hell yeah. Green beans are my singular go-to if
Yeah,
I'm doing any veggies. I'll say in a diet, that's one of the things that start to get a little outside the box because those numbers start ramping up when you're starving. And it's like, ooh, I might do some mushrooms or some peppers or something. But it brings a little color and change to your day. But yeah, that is some man. Like there's a lot of the things that you mentioned here, and even hearing that the insight is beyond your years. So it's not just the physique. I see why people have gravitated towards you. And like you said, I think a big part of coaching is not just the X's and O's and when to add chicken and when to pull cardio or, which exercise to do first. A big part of it is you are almost like a life coach. And for those people, like you said, like their lifestyle clients, you're basically just coaching them on the lifestyle. How do I fit fitness or bodybuilding type lifestyle into this average day-to-day life that I have to live or choose to live? So it sounds like there's just there's a lot of benefit from somebody, especially in their younger years, learning from you because it's like you're just years ahead of your time, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you get back on stage. I was looking at your 2021 pics and then seeing some of your recent pictures. I'm like, man, this kid's got to be 40 pounds heavier than this. And there's just something, like Tommy said, there is just something. We've said it to different people, like, we do physique critiques sometimes, and Tommy and I coach, obviously. I can't tell you how many times we've both said to somebody, like, you just need to walk around as a heavier, bigger person. And not a lot of people want to do it.
yep, yeah. Walk around at a heavier, bigger person for a long period of time. That's all it is.
what because Joe and I always talk about, we call it the last meal Olympics, when you're like gagging down your last bites of food for the day, and finishing that meal and chucking it are the two choices you have in front of you. So have you had any thoughts like that, any experience? What goes through your head when like you're force feeding? Because I don't think a lot of people really grasp what we mean when we say force feed. Like you're actually like putting food in your mouth that you don't want, chewing it and swallowing it, and then continuing to do it until the meal's gone. And it's like you're sweating. You're not like,
Yeah.
it's a hell of an experience if you've never done it.
Yeah. And it seems like it's been an everyday thing for me for the past 6 months.
Then you're
but,
doing something right.
But you're right. Like it's literally the last meal of the night. I'm sitting here, and there has 100% been I wouldn't say over 10 times, but there's been about 10 times maybe where I actually throw up that last meal like completely just because I'm literally so full. And obviously it doesn't happen too much. You don't want that to happen, but that's to the level it's at where it's literally like I'm gonna throw this meal up. I gotta go take a walk outside for a second to clear my head.
Yeah. Is there anything, what do you tell yourself though when it is difficult? Like are you telling yourself crazy stuff, or is it just simply because you want to get better so bad? Like is there anything that you can call on here, or even if it's in the gym, or but mostly like about that food? Because loving training the way that it's obvious that you do, I have to imagine that those episodes of force feeding are probably more difficult than trying to gear yourself up for a big set in the gym.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think it's just in me that I just know that this is what I have to do. Like this, we all know, everyone knows that what you have to do is you have to eat. And that's the thing that nobody really wants to do. Everyone loves to train, but no one wants to eat, and you just have to do it. And like going back to where we started, this is what I chose as my career. And if you're going to make this a career and you want to bodybuild for life, then and you want to be the best bodybuilder, then this is what you have to do. So I made my choice, and I didn't want to have a regular job. I wanted to do this. So I know that eating the meals is just a part of the job. And everyone out there, whether you're in real estate or you're a fireman or whatever, everyone has tough parts of their job. And, eating is just one of those tough parts of the job, but you just got to do it.
Very,
Well
very
said.
thoughtful, buddy. I appreciate
Well
that.
said. Yes.
Since you've done a show, we didn't even touch on this, but what did you learn about yourself in your first prep? Because you were like, we don't have any, people can look at your pics. You were peeled. Like, it's not like you got up there and it was like, oh, I just need to be like, you nailed it. And I didn't look like that my first show. So again, I give respect. And I remember seeing you walking around the gym in a hoodie, sweats. And just so everyone knows, Jake trains in a hoodie and sweats every session, even if it's 120 outside. He's fully covered. I tried to do it one day, and I drenched my sweatshirt and thought I was going to die. So, that's very impressive. In the Arizona heat, to be fully covered and to maintain that is a level of like just accepting discomfort. So, what did you learn about yourself during that time?
Man, that prep is really when
we got
I
you pulled
realized.
up right now, buddy.
Oh yeah,
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was taking a look at these earlier. I'm a leg snob myself. The side leg, when someone is really peeled, is maybe my favorite part of a physique. So I saw this and I was like, okay, yeah, really good. And then I clicked over and saw this and I was like, okay, he brought it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely gonna need some more size than that right there next time though. But yeah, what I learned about myself, the biggest thing I learned about myself is that I can do this, and I can do this for a long time. And I started the prep. I didn't really know what I was doing when I started, maybe 7 months out from the show, but I want to give credit again to my coach that I hired, AJ. I think I hired him 3 months out, and he told me when we started, he said, look, it's going to be rough, because he's the type of guy, the type of coach that he's going to bring you in peeled no matter what. And I was maybe a little bit behind when I signed up with him. And he said, look, it's going to be tough. We're going to drop a lot of weight for you. And, I just did exactly what he told me. And I realized, look, all you got to do is just, like I said, do what your coach says, and you're going to get there, So that's all it is.
For the listeners, what was the most cardio you were doing daily?
So cardio wise, we really, the biggest thing for him that he had was steps, step count. So I only did 30 minutes on the Stairmaster one time a week. And I think my highest step count I got to was like 15,000 steps a day.
Okay.
But it was really just step count. So yeah, like 15K steps. Lowest calories I got to was maybe 1800, 1900, so not too bad. Yeah, I think I'm just genetically too. I think that my body can get a little bit leaner easier than most people. So I think that plays a role as well. But yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about this, but training hard throughout your prep is going to drive that as well. Like it's going to retain the muscle, and then it's also going to be you don't want to think about it like a tool to burn calories, but it is doing that. But then in effect, you're getting leaner and maintaining that muscle by training hard. So there's more pop to it, and that conditioning shines through. So you said that you started at 7 months out. You did like 4 months by yourself. What was the difference? One, I have two questions. So what was the difference like compared to how you were doing it versus when you hired AJ? And then he said that you had to drop quite a bit. So where were you when you hired him? And then what was the end product on stage in terms of like body weight?
Yeah. So like 7 months out, I started dieting, and how I was at is what I've always heard, or from the people that I trusted would say, just take it slow. If you take it slow, that's the best way to do it. So that's what I did. I lost 1 pound a week for about 4 months, which was fine, but I just had so much more to lose. So that's when we kind of ramped it up a little bit. And I gained to him. I don't even know what I would say my body percent was at when I got to him. My weight was probably around 160, and then no, maybe higher than that. But my stage weight was actually 143, so really low. But the biggest change going over to him, I think, was the steps. Just incorporating higher expenditure throughout the day made the biggest difference in how I could drop weight faster at an easy rate too, not killing myself on cardio or dropping calories too low. And then his training style as well. I think that helped me retain a lot of muscle, just completely 180ing, switching to, what I was doing before wasn't necessarily maybe the most like optimal way to do things. And training with him and his style kind of helped me, I think, maybe even like build a little bit of muscle just because it was so new to it. So that was probably the biggest change was, like the overall expenditure and different training style, and everything else I was basically doing. But yeah.
So you were 143 on stage. You're walking around at 205 right now?
I am, yeah.
Man, that's a wild difference. What were you walking around at before you started? Like prior to the start at 7 months out, let's say, what were you just walking around carrying? Do you remember?
I think the highest I got to was 175, 180, maybe 180.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I think probably like high 170s was the highest I got.
So this 200 is like you're living in it every day in terms of being uncomfortable. Like this is way above your set point.
Way above what I'm used to and what my body wants to be at. My two brothers. I have two brothers that are not too far off from my age that are both about 120 pounds. So this is not what my body wants to do,
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to point out earlier is like Jake is a full off-season bodybuilder for his height and just where he's at in his career. Like I remember what 200 felt like for me, and it was red in the face. Tying my shoes was a chore. Being a fire, like all of it was brutal. So every 10 pounds I've learned in the off season of new weight is kind of like a new, like, wow, life sucks. Outside of the gym is great, but that hour and a half in the gym is not life for sure. So, and that's the biggest thing I've noticed with young people your age, but even, I mean, guys in their upper 20s are afraid to get to where you're at. And like, you just have such a level above those people, because if you can't get over the fear of feeling like we've been describing and just walking around heavy and being soft and, not really seeing your abs outside of the morning, you can see the top four if you get the lighting right, but you're never going to progress in bodybuilding.
Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time. And honestly, I mean, I think it's really flipped for me, because I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I don't even necessarily want to go diet again, because I just like being huge. I like people looking at me and thinking, why is that guy, like he's a short guy, but he's he's really big for being that short. I like that feeling. I don't really want to go back to having abs, but obviously the whole competitive bodybuilding is what I need to do. So I'm going to do it, but I love being big. I know you guys probably feel the same way, but
I gotta say, this is the first year of first year or so of my journey that I do feel that way. Every other time I've reached a point in the off season where I'm like, man, I can't wait to diet. I'm over every aspect of this. And I was thinking about I'm gonna be starting relatively soon, and it's been a long off season for me. It's gonna be 3 years. Um, and I'm walking around bigger and heavier than I've ever been. And man, like even if it is the 2 hours that I'm in the gym, man, I feel like an ox. Like I love what that feels like. And I'm not gonna lie, like after being in this as long as I have and putting as much into it as I have, it's cool to start kind of getting noticed, like even outside of the gym. Like if I go to the beach or the grocery store with my girlfriend, any of these things, like you get looks or you get people that just can't help themselves but to say something. Um, I'm with you there. Like for the first time ever, I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I'm looking forward to being any smaller than this because I know what it's taken for me to get here. And the big one is just the training. I love what I feel like training right now. And that's always been probably the least favorite part of the competitive process is when you look the best in terms of getting on stage. For me, at least, a lot of the times, like when the times that I've really been in shape, I'm borderline useless in the gym compared to where I've been in the off season, which is not as mentally stimulating as what my training is most of the year. But it's necessary for that time, and so. But yeah, I'm totally with you. It is uncomfortable, but I've almost lived it for so long at this point that I'm like not looking forward to losing it at this point. What about you, Tommy? I mean, you've done long off seasons yourself.
Yeah. I've always learned to just, sit in it wherever you're at. If you're
Yeah,
heavy, because like I said, every 10 pounds for me, 200, 210, I can remember things where I was at mentally. I remember 229. I couldn't get over 230 for a long period. And then I finally busted through. Like I remember every 10-pound increment. Right now I'm like, that 250 to 260, and it's presenting new challenges of like, just doing my daily errands of the grocery stores is like, ooh, I need to sit down and get a nap in. But as someone who just dieted and got peeled, and for basically the last 12 weeks of my contest season, the gym wasn't fun. I mean, it was what I had to
yeah,
do, but training wasn't fun. I might get one set per workout if I'm lucky. A lot of it was like, just don't get hurt. So I would say that first week post USA's, I just kind of did my own thing, trained for fun, let my body hydrate. And then him and I started up the next week. And that was like, I felt like rejuvenated as far like, man, I just love to train hard and have intensity and push hard in the gym. Bodybuilding's
yeah,
just a byproduct of the training. And I think that's what all three of us have heard talk, like, Branch Warren, Ian Valere, all these guys, like everybody, James Hollingshead, all these guys just love to train, and bodybuilding is just something they got into because they love to train. But there is a degree of training performance that gets lost when you're like lean. And I mean, I sitting on a chair for the last 3 months going into my USA's was like uncomfortable. And that part of it I loved, but at the same time I was like, damn, I'm not doing shit in the gym that's worth filming.
yeah. Um, all right, man. So we're coming up on an hour, maybe just past an hour. And so you're, like you said, you're a full-time bodybuilder. You're making a living bodybuilding. You mentioned a couple of them. You mentioned your coach. Anything or anybody that you want to shout out, plug, any of that?
Yeah, so I mean, already Tommy, for being a great training partner, my old training partner, Brady. One of the first people that really helped me get started with, having a better understanding of bodybuilding, was this kid I met in college, Joe Delara. So shout out him. And then shout out my parents for, getting me to where I'm at today and instilling the mindset that I have. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure finally speaking with you and meeting with you, so to speak, online. Um, I know I've heard a lot of good things about you from Tommy, so it's easy to see now why he's so impressed with you. So it was a pleasure, man. We thank you for the support on the show. Like you said, you've been watching for a long time, and we appreciate that. And yeah, I don't think this will be the last time that we hear from you on the show. So until next time, guys, for Tommy Styles, Jacob Delara, this is Joseph Pircher with the Thinking Man's podcast. We are out.